Two teens are banished to remote islands for committing a brutal crime. Are they getting away with something? Two 14-year-olds are convicted as adults for the senseless murder of an entire family of 4. Should they be serving life in prison? An honor student kills a teenage girl in a drive-by shooting at a local high school. Should this first-time teen offender do adult time? Tonight on Town Meeting, what punishment fits the crime for kid criminals?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Welcome. Our Town Meeting tonight continues Como's crime crackdown campaign as we talk about what to do with kids who commit serious crimes. Now, earlier this week, News 4 anchor Kathy Gertson had a special series of reports on the 2 Indian youth who have been banished to remote Alaskan islands. Tonight we are going to talk with the mother of one of those boys. We're also going to talk with the tribal judge who helped put together what some are calling a very creative and rehabilitative form of sentencing and what others call a farce, that these teens are on little more than an extended camping trip. Also tonight we are going to be talking with the father of the boy convicted of killing Melissa Fernandez outside Ballard High School, and a prosecutor who tried 2 teenagers as adults for murdering 4 members of a Yakima family. Rudy James, let me go to you real quickly here. You've got to be aware that there are some people who have been very critical of this whole banishment issue. Is there a point to their criticisms, do you think?
None at all.
You think this is fine and it works and this is perhaps what we should be looking toward?
This banishment procedures is something that's very old in our culture. It's something that's been practiced for thousands and thousands of years, and it has worked beautifully in the past, and presently it's doing a magnificent job for the 2 boys that we banished.
What do you think makes it work? What do you attribute to its success then?
Several things. There's never ever a simplistic answer, and basically if you take these 2 young men, you put them in a small microcosm of society like your modern-day penitentiaries are, where all your basest elements are there. You can parallel that with somebody who have lots of diseases. You take 2 healthy young men in there, and you expose them to all those diseases. As now you take, on the other hand, we take these 2 fellows, we put them in an absolutely pristine setting, where this magnificent scenery, beautiful.
So they rehabilitate themselves, is basically what you're saying, in a sense.
Well,
for the short answer,
we believe that nature does that.
What do you folks think? I haven't asked you this. Who thinks this is fine, fair? Who thinks it's terrible, wrong? What do you think? You're a young guy. What do you think of it?
I don't know.
Not a clue? Okay. How about his dad?
Could be a system that works.
So what is appealing to you about this?
Being extracted from the rest of the criminal world, that our prison system is not necessarily the greatest.
So doing something with the kids at the same time as you're doing something for them?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts? Let me get to you.
Yes, I was watching a particular program the other night on television, and the prisoners that they talked to talked about rehabilitation in the prison system, and they all seemed to say the same thing, that they were not going to be rehabilitated unless they decided themselves to be rehabilitated. So if you send them to prison, it doesn't mean they're going to be rehabilitated. I think that the judgment of sending them out there is going to make them think about themselves and what they did, and they're going to have to come to terms with themselves.
Okay. All right, gotcha. All right. You know, let's address a couple of points that this gentleman just touched on, because we need the concept here. These kids are on islands 98% of the time they're by themselves. If they had been sent to a juvenile detention facility, for example, they'd have TV, they'd have music, they'd have other kids to, speak with and pal around with. They'd have all the amenities. Here, they are dependent on themselves to a great, great extent. There is no television, there is no music, there is no radio, there are no books. I don't know, maybe there are some books. Have you stripped away everything from them, Rudy?
Basically, we stripped everything away from them. At their request, the only book we've really allowed is the Bible. They did request that. And
okay.
This coming from 2 boys who were never religious.
It. For how long a period of time?
They're going to be by themselves for at least 12 months, maybe up to 18 months.
All right, let me go to Seth Fine. He is with the Snohomish County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, appealing. You're appealing the judge's decision to allow this to happen. Based on what? The law, or that you don't like it, or I don't like it and it is the law, what?
There's two basic things that's wrong with it. The one is that it's a kind of punishment that judges in this state have not been allowed to inflict. And the other is that it's discriminatory. If instead of being Native Americans, these young men were Asian Americans or African Americans or any other kind of Americans, they'd be in prison right now.
All right, so let's cut to the quick. Is it a concept that does, in fact, offer some appeal, however?
If it's workable, then it ought to be made available for everyone without regards to their race.
Maybe that's what I'm asking you. If we can play let's pretend for just a moment, and let's pretend that the system allows for this kind of alternative sentencing. If it were within the Washington state statutes, would there be resistance from the U.S. court system?
Well, I think we also see some real security problems here. I don't know what it is that's keeping these young men on this island and keeping them from leaving if they decide that's what they want to do.
So you think the risk of escape exists?
I have no way of knowing one way or the other. We haven't been given enough information about this situation to say.
Okay.
It certainly seems like it does.
I think it's, for us Native Americans, it's easy because everything we do is either culturally or spiritually. I used to work in a prison. I taught at Monroe Reformatory. So what we do, all of us, in the field of working with young adults and all this, we do everything spiritually. What works for us may not work for everybody else.
But here's what, and if I may, Seth, correct me if I'm wrong, here's part of what he is saying. He's saying that under our current justice system, Washington state statutes shouldn't distinguish what happens to Native Americans, what happens to African Americans, what happens to Hispanics, what happens to Caucasians. If you break the law, the punishment should be uniform.
Well, there's another thing you got to look at is, like, I'm a Blackfeet Indian from Montana. Our reservation is like a country of our own. We're a sovereign nation.
But when you're outside of that sovereign nation.
I mean, just because we left our reservation doesn't mean we left everything behind either.
All right, Seth, is that part of the principle that we're discussing here? Is that...
Even if you consider them to be a separate nationality, if a Mexican citizen or a Russian citizen comes to the United States, they're not entitled to any different treatment than an American citizen.
Rudy, go ahead.
Of course, I'm disagreeing very, very sharply with the man to my left for several reasons. Starting with George Washington. George Washington, we have copies of his speeches and how he he alluded to the fact that we would be a separate people, and there are a whole host of U.S. federal laws that recognize a special relationship between the United States government and the indigenous peoples of North America, like the Indian Self-Determination Act.
So you're seeing this in the broader context. You're saying that as a separate entity within the United States, you need to be treated...
This is an act of Congress, many acts of Congress, and let's face it, this is a nation of immigrants. The only people who have not immigrated to this country are we, a Native American people.
But we